Yeah, and I think that's the shady backside of Big Pickle. There are things going on behind the scenes, and if they want to get at somebody, they absolutely can. So I think the players have every single reason to be afraid of Big Pickle. I think stakeholders within pickleball have every reason to be fearful of things of their actions,
Hmm.
right? There's there are vindictive organizations within pickleball that have the ability to pull strings and make your life miserable.
All right, you guys already know we wear Viore essentially every single day. We were wearing it before they even became a sponsor of this pod. You can go to viore.com/the dink. You get, what do you get? I always forget. I know that um, you get free shipping on orders of $75 or more. And you get 20% off your first purchase and free shipping on any U.S. orders over $75 and free returns. Viore.com/the dink. I wear their joggers. I wear their athletic shirts. I wear them out. I wear them on the court. I wear them to work out. I wear them when I'm flying. Honestly, Viore is like the best brand right now for versatile clothing. So, Viore.com/the dink. Yeah. I'm not gonna lie, dollar has gonna yagi. Okay, you ready to get into it?
Let's send it.
All right, rip it. It's a good old fashioned Thomas and Zane pod here. A lot to catch up on. How was your time with the hooligans in the studio last week? That was
I
interesting
really
to
like
watch.
Yeah, I liked the title of that, Zane's house party. I appreciated that.
Yeah, and
But
then they were sending like they sent a few thumbnails through for my approval, and I was like the one where they're drinking beer.
for sure, absolutely. Well, hey, we had a record-setting week for the Stop Alzheimer's Now swear jar. So ProXR and Game Plus got the invoices for last time, and they're like, "What the hell is going on with this episode?" So
So yeah,
shout out to you guys for to ProXR and Game Plus for sponsoring the swear jar. Hopefully, last episode didn't ruin it for them.
yeah, here's the thing. So I told my team, I was like, hey, listen, we're kind of swearing left and right now. Like, is this bad? Is this going to be bad for monetization, or are we going to get strikes? So they're looking into it to see the degree to which we can continue to do that. But there might come a day where we have to be like, all right, we got to, maybe we just have to start bleeping them. But that becomes very tedious very quickly.
Rein it in a little bit. Hey, I only had $100, but Jason and Carlos were getting after it. So
Yeah, they're funny guys. I liked Carlos's impression.
yeah, I particularly liked Annalie Aguas. That was a good one. That might have slipped some people's heads.
Annalie Waters.
There you go. See, you
Yeah,
got it. You got it.
I might have gotten it in a moment, but yeah, I didn't get it right there. Okay, all right. This is probably like our holiday episode. I don't know. Are you going to be able to do one? We haven't talked about this next week at any point.
Sure, why not? I can make it happen. I'll dress up as Santa. I don't know. Whatever.
It'll have to be remote, so we'll figure that out. We got to start getting in the studio, dude. That's the thing. But all right. So I got you a gift, and it's a poem.
Oh no.
If you'll allow me.
The floor is yours.
'Tis the season for holiday cheer, and pickleball blessings are many this year. Salaries cut, negotiations had. Select players make seven figures, others moved back in with dad. Some players driving expensive cars they can no longer afford, but at least the contract negotiations didn't leave them completely poor. I mean, look, you still got health insurance and a 401k, and at least you won't be relegated to Siberia to play. We all know when offered the salary revisements, it's not like the players felt pinned. You either get paid less or you essentially do slave labor. Sounds like a win-win. It's all good. Playing pickleball for a living is a blessing, I'd say. Wait, I can't see this line. Shout out Salome. Okay, I'm just joking. I'm actually a fan of Davidze, and there aren't many players I don't like these days. Personality is at an all-time high. We're seeing players' true colors. Pablo flipping the bird, Riley chirping his opponent's mothers. CJ calling out sportsmanship, Leia going off on Twitter. Jelly Bee daily bombs, lawsuits being served like dinner. But I worry about the Pro Tour funding. What if it does not last? If only they had a nickel for every new pickleball podcast. Pickleball.com released their top podcast list. Congrats to those who won, but seriously, no freestyle boys? What gives? On the topic of funds, pro pickleball viewership is crucial, so be sure to tune in live. It's very easy. YouTube at 9 a.m. Mountain Time. Or was it Amazon Prime? I don't want to miss Ben and AL win for the 1,000th consecutive time. Okay, I got it. Switch over to ESPN Plus and create a subscription. It'll be worth it. I say that with conviction. Matches are really getting good now. Stick around, don't go. Finals will air at 4 p.m. Eastern Time on ESPN. The Ocho. If this poem doesn't go over well, the team knows the gist. We'll have to delete it faster than a Jim Claus Christmas list. Speaking of Christmas list, go to the dink.shop for the pickleball box, easily the best gift. Let's make no mistake, pro pickleball is the best sport around. Just ask the players. A whopping 25% think their employers are morally sound. Okay, but actually, should we take that survey serious? 75% of respondents of a tiny fraction of players who only voted because they're already pissed. My sincerest hope is that pro pickleball ascends and all this drama is a big nothing burger. But as of late, I'm thinking that's about as likely as this merger. All of this is so confusing, but it's solvable despite how complex. Kind of like a Rubik's Cube. Sounds like we need to bring in a certain 3-5 at best. This poem has been a little bit negative, so let's change gears. Remember that we will look back on all of this with fondness in a mere few years. Thank God for the comedic relief, shout out to Chop and Memes, but Big Pickle killed Heishe, and for that, we can only grieve. What an insane time to be in this sport, the fastest growing sport in the world, the most passionate fans, old and young, boys and girls. To build something great, sacrifices need to be made and the road won't be smooth. But if we all row in the same direction, pickleball will be undeniable soon. Don't allow the growing pains to distract you from the fact that we've simply never seen a sport grow this fast. We all love the game, enjoy the ride, us pickleballers are lucky. Merry Christmas and happy holidays to our pickleball junkies.
Wow, this has got to be more work you put into this than all other episodes combined.
That is correct.
You finish up grads or your MBA program for the semester, and you're a new man. That was impressive. How long do you think that took you?
Hour and a half.
Okay.
But
there's a lot to unpack from that. That was
yeah. I had to remove a lot. Once I got going, I couldn't stop myself.
You removed a lot. Did Big Pickle get to you?
Yeah, exactly. Let's talk about that. Wow, what a segue. I want to get your take on Big Pickle, including us, right? Like everybody says this person's in, the PPA's pocket, this person's in MLP's pocket, this person is biased toward this organization or these players. Like, what do you think about all this Big Pickle talk? Do you think there's a Big Pickle? Do you think there's a degree of that happening?
I would say that there's, when I think of big pharma, I don't really know. Big pharma is like probably the main one, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think of entities that you are afraid to speak out publicly against, right? So, yeah, I mean, there are entities that people are very, very afraid of speaking out against. So I absolutely think that the vast majority of people with something to lose in the pickleball industry, not your Odoth or your Maurice the Grease on Twitter, right?
Right.
Those guys don't care.
Mm-hmm.
Like, your people who are really involved and have something to lose from speaking out, yeah, they are quieted, they are silenced by Big Pickle.
Yeah. Do you think anybody's being paid in order to censor information?
Do you think anybody's getting paid to censor information?
Yeah.
Yeah? Are you getting paid to censor information?
No, we are very much not getting paid. But hey, guys, you guys want to write me a check?
So
always open. There's always a price.
Thomas can be sold to Big Pickle.
No, I mean it is tricky though, right? Like, the more we grow and the things we're trying to do, covering certain topics is completely touchy, and people get pissed off, and they're not afraid to tell us. But that's the business we're in, and we just, as always, I say it, we try and call it down the middle. And I think we're probably the only ones who have been accused of each organization by being of being biased toward the others. And at different times, people accusing us of censoring or spinning information to the benefit of every organization, right? So I think that's a product of the fact that we have no alliance, and people are going to they're not always going to be happy with what we put out there. So
Yeah. So tell me about that, right? So it seems like a media company like the Dink would be a perfect example of somebody that has something big to lose by speaking out against some of these organizations.
yeah.
Do you personally are there any organizations that you feel like you can't criticize?
No, not that we can't criticize, but when we do, it's made apparent that they're not happy. And, there are things that we can lose, right? Which is access to events, right? You and I going in, sitting courtside and doing podcasts and stuff like that, or us walking around and filming content and using that content, or, repurposing stream content that can be taken away from us, right? But that is what it is. We're not gonna change what we say in an effort to appease these people. So what happens happens. I mean, I guess that's just the way it is, right?
I suppose so. It's unfortunate that there's fear of retribution for speaking your mind. Um, yeah, I mean, I'm I'm currently facing that.
Yeah, right.
I'm currently living by the consequences of my statements in August on this entire deal.
How
So
so?
it's a real thing. Like Big Pickle will get you if you speak out against them,
Are
or
you
at least attempt to.
are you able to expand on that?
Um,
Probably one of those situations where you would choose not to because it's in your best interest, right? This is exactly what we're talking about.
yeah, I mean, like I probably shouldn't, but at this point, I don't know. You know, I'm already a target,
Yeah.
right?
Hmm.
So nothing that I do or say at this point is going to change that. But yeah, I mean, I feel like I'm currently being myself and other MLP loyal players right now in these pay cut negotiations are being punished for our loyalty to MLP, and there's no uncertainty about that.
Hmm.
That's you briefly mentioned the survey results in your beautiful poem, but yeah, it's very difficult to make a public statement or any public uh, show of loyalty without that backfiring. Seems
Sure.
like.
Sure. I mean, if I'm going to play devil's advocate, if you work for a company and you disparage that company publicly,
Yeah, no, no, I mean that
you know,
that's valid. Sure, I can agree with that line of argument. I think we need to then define what disparagement is. I'd encourage anybody who has listened to what I've had to say to say, is speaking something that is factually correct disparagement? I is that disparagement? If you say that the sky is blue, but it somehow affects an organization in a negative way, is that disparagement?
right. Right. If you're speaking truth, stating facts, should you be punished for that? I mean, I think the obvious answer is no. But there's ways punishment can exist covertly, or in a more subtle way that's not as obvious. And in some ways, you can't prove it or you can't point to it, right? Because there's certain levers that are pulled that aren't exactly explicit.
Yeah, and I think that's the shady backside of Big pickle. There are things going on behind the scenes, and if they want to get at somebody, they absolutely can. So I think the players have every single reason to be afraid of Big Pickle. I think stakeholders within pickleball have every reason to be fearful of things of their actions,
Hmm.
right? There's there are vindictive organizations within pickleball that have the ability to pull strings and make your life miserable. Now, how long can that happen before there's enough pissed off people that can turn the tides? I think we'll find out very, very shortly how long that can happen. Um, I think at a certain point, you have pissed off and manipulated too many people where enough people band together to say, this is wrong, that you can be usurped or brought down a peg. So I genuinely think that pickleball right now, as we're filming this on December 19th, I think pickleball at the professional level is at a very, very uh, shaky spot in its existence.
Hmm.
Um, there are organizations that have always kept their promises. There are organizations that have never kept their promises, and there are organizations that sometimes keep their promises. And I think we're in danger of professional pickleball being controlled by somebody who has a long history of not honoring agreements or being honest or being even necessarily ethical.
Who do you think are some of the other targets, if you will, right? Like, I think there's some obvious players who have been vocal, like Alea, Jilly B, obviously. Some others. Like, who else do you think would be in that camp?
Well, I think anybody who signed Major League Pickleball made a vote with their feet that they didn't want to be a part of the PPA. So I think anybody that's signed Major League Pickleball has a an immediate target on their back.
Well,
Now, that
some
does
of them just got better offers, right?
I don't know of anybody that accepted who had multiple offers. I don't know of a single person who had offers from both the PPA and MLP where their MLP offer was a larger dollar amount.
Hmm.
I don't know a single person.
Hmm.
Um, Now there are certainly people that are important to the PPA, right? There are certainly people that may have signed with Major League Pickleball that the PPA still wants, but so they'll treat them well when they're of use, but for how long they're useful, who knows?
Hmm. All right. Major League Pickleball posted a picture of Ben Johns sort of like, like sighing, like frustrated. And they asked their audience to caption it when you blank. And you had the top comment and you said, when you are asked to take a 40% pay cut or will be sent to Siberia. That's where I got the Siberia line in my poem. What did you mean by that? Break that down.
Well, I would like to first acknowledge that myself that I am an equal opportunity bullshit caller outer. Okay, whether it's PPA garbage, whether it's MLP garbage, or whether it's APP garbage,
Yep.
USAP garbage, garbage is garbage. Okay, it doesn't. I've been very vocal about my support for Major League Pickleball. That is that is strained right now. We'll say that. But yeah, I mean, I just think that when all of this happened, right? When all of this happened and things sort of settled down with this player bidding war,
Hmm.
you and I got on here immediately afterwards and talked about how we are going to have to come back to the table and make pay cuts for the sustainability of these leagues.
Yeah.
That's a non-question in my mind.
Hmm.
Like, we're overpaid. I don't disagree with that whatsoever. However, if MLP and PPA are truly coming to a merged entity, I think that you need to have equity across the leagues, meaning like similarly marketable players should be paid similarly. So here's my thought process. Most Major League Pickleball players took a substantial amount less money to play for Major League Pickleball, and we're also being asked to take a larger percentage of a pay cut. So look, I'm happy with the amount that I'm being paid. Post pay cut, pre pay cut, amended amount, whatever. Like I'm happy with my amount. But when somebody who already has an inflated contract is only then being asked to take a smaller amount of a pay cut, that's just simply unfair. It's not, it's equal services, but basically like similarly marketable players are not making anywhere near the same amount of money based on when they signed and where they signed.
And you're not talking about like somebody who's middle of the pack compared to like Ben, right? You're talking about people who are at parallel results skill wise, debatably.
Right. I would say equally marketable players. So let's say somebody who is picked 24th was the MLP contract and 25th was a PPA contract. If they're almost identical players, the PPA player likely signed for 1.5 to 2 to as much as 3 times as much as they were offered by MLP.
Mm-hmm.
And now they're being asked to take a 20% reduction when the person who signed with MLP for a third of the money is being asked to take 40%. I mean, the entities are coming together and merging. It seems like they have the opportunity to fix that inequity rather than exacerbate it.
Right.
So I think that's the problem with some of these pay cuts. And like you mentioned in the poem, the alternative to the pay cuts is doing clinics and camps, which again I think is reasonable, but they've made very clear that these camps are not revenue generating. I mean, they will generate revenue, but the purpose of these camps is to punish the players that have decided not to take a pay cut. And it's that much is clear. I mean, you look at
You mean the assignment of players and how they make those decisions. Though the decisions are meant to punish. It's not like that. I just want to clarify. It's not like they're doing camps and clinics and stuff specifically to punish players. Like, as you said, it's revenue driving.
It is masquerading as revenue driving. So when I saw the presentation of what your 200 days would look like if you don't take the pay cut, you're signing yourself up for potentially as much as 9 hours of clinics on any given day that MLP owns your rights. 9 hours of clinics. The schedule that I saw was 8 to 11, 12 to 3, and 6 to 9. So you have 9 hours of on court time, but that's a 13-hour day of work.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, it's clear that if you don't take the pay cut, they are simply just going to attempt to make your life miserable with the disguise of, oh yeah, we need to recover revenue. Which again, the revenue recovery thing is understandable, but the way that it's rolled out again, I think is just, I think it's pretty clearly punishment.
But if I have players and I'm paying them for a certain amount of days, I'm going to try and maximize their value. And if I can put them in clinics, I'm going to do that.
Yeah, well then why not put us in clinics for 15 hours in that day? I mean, it's to have a 13-hour day is, I think, for multiple days in a row is ridiculous. Like that's not a sustainable thing that hardly anybody can do on the court for teaching 9 hours per day and having your day go from 8 a.m. to 9 p.m. That's not reasonable.
I mean,
maybe if it's 6 hours, maybe if it's 5 hours per day, 6 hours of court time per day, maybe that's reasonable. But it prevents somebody from you can't practice at all during that day.
Right. I think when it gets down to it, you're going to have those individual conversations around your clinics and what you're scheduled for, and you're going to be able to make selections around how many hours you're going to be out there, what your shifts are, and things like that. And it's not just going to be you; you're going to have other pros. Um, I would doubt you're doing 3 days of 9-hour clinics back to back to back.
I agree. I think when it comes down to it, that's not actually going to happen. I don't think they have interest in administrating clinics for 100 and some days per year, and nobody has interest in doing it. I'm saying that the narrative behind the scenes is that these clinic days, if you don't take the reduction, are simply punishment for not taking the reduction.
Mm. Got it. All right.
So anyway, I'm no longer afraid of Big Pickle. Are you?
I think there is I think there's just a lot that remains to be seen in all of this. Like I don't know. I one of the MLP owners actually just texted me and said anything is possible. I was asking specifics about could this happen, could that happen, you know, just sort of painting some hypotheticals. And he was like, literally anything's possible. Like, still, we're at this point where there's a lot we don't know, and we won't know until those days actually come.
Yeah, I mean, as of right now, nobody's that I know of has actually seen this contract modification in writing either. Like, so yeah, that needs to happen. The whether or not Major League Pickleball and PPA merge needs to happen. There are plenty of things that need to happen before anybody steps on a court in 2024.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, we keep dancing around it, so why don't we jump into the details? I'm going to read this summary, which ChatGPT was generous enough to put together for me, and then we'll go through some of the individual points that I thought were very interesting. But essentially, this is the CNBC piece. It's about the player collective, the merger, this survey, and so I'll just read through this summary really quickly. Okay, so. In professional pickleball, a collective of players have formed to address grievances with Major League Pickleball and the Pro Pickleball Association, particularly over a proposed 40% pay cut. Players criticize the leagues for a lack of transparency and adherence to agreements. Despite pickleball's increasing popularity and financial growth, recent leadership changes in MLP have added to the uncertainty. The collective, representing most of MLP's 100 players and led by Jill Braverman, has raised concerns about negotiation tactics and a potential merger with the PPA Tour. Survey results from the collective indicate widespread dissatisfaction, with many players feeling unfairly treated. Despite MLP's claims of widespread acceptance of pay cuts, independent estimates suggest a lower rate of acceptance. The future of the league, including significant financial commitments and a potential increase in player salaries, hinges on the successful merger of MLP and the PPA Tour. So one thing I want to ask you about this line, the collective representing most of MLP's 100 players. How many players are actually in this collective?
Yeah, so I think every single signed MLP player has joined the chat, and I think only one or two people have actually left the chat. We've never done a sign up, like sign your name here if you're part of the
Right.
collective.
Right.
That's the easiest way to get a target on your back.
Mm-hmm.
So there's not a specific number of people in this collective that are, members, right? Nobody's signed in.
All right. While Zane puts Murray outside, I'm going to read the rest of these notes here. So
I got him.
No
I'd
more
say
barking, Murray.
75% about participation in this collective.
Got it. Okay. And then do you know how many players actually took that survey?
I don't have insight into that.
Because back to one of my lines in the poem, it's like, to what degree can we take the survey seriously, knowing that we're already dealing with a subset of players who have indicated they prefer MLP over PPA, right? So there's probably just going to be an inherent bias there. But then we also don't know what subset of players within that subset of players responded to the survey. And I would say you're more inclined to take the survey and deliver criticism if you're already pissed off and you have grievances, right? The dissidents are more likely to speak up than those that feel they're in a good spot, right? So
Yeah. So to backtrack to your question, I don't know the exact number, but I know that I think about 70 to 75% of players have participated in one way or another, or in these surveys. So like there is widespread participation
mm-hmm.
among these in these surveys and in the chat.
Got it. Okay.
I think any rumor that this is just like a couple of pissed off players, I think is invalid with certainty.
Yeah. But because these players, many of them want to remain anonymous and it's difficult to attach names to it, and we don't have a hard count, you can understand why there would be skepticism around what these results actually indicate.
Yeah, I mean I would say it's the word of one against the other. Yeah, I mean if we're doing a I think the player collective comes out okay in that if we're trusting one's word against the other.
So let me read through the rest of these points, okay? So salaries in Major League Pickleball, these are just sort of interesting notes I wanted to touch on. So salaries in Major League Pickleball range from 30,000 to 2 million per year. I mean, that is quite the disparity. I think we were running with this narrative that everyone was making six figures, 401k, health insurance, comp travel. But now we're seeing, some people are being paid as low as 30 grand a year, which is interesting to me, something I didn't know. Did you know that some of the salaries were that low?
No, I didn't.
Yeah.
And so being asked to take a 40% cut of
Yeah.
$30,000 has got to be pretty rough. It sounds
Right.
like that doesn't seem like it's the best place to start with some of those cuts.
I wish we could see a median and an average, but so pay cuts range from 60% to 40%. And one of the things I wanted to call out was like early, some of the language was even Ben and AL are taking six-figure pay cuts. But when you think about it, it's a clever way to phrase it because 10% of 2 million is 200,000, which is multiple six figures. But you're still making 1.8 million, right?
Yeah, wording's important. We found out that a playoff is different than a super final, Thomas.
Right. Yeah, I'm still unclear on that whole thing.
Yeah, playoff is not a super final. We found that one out.
Yeah. And similarly, right, going from 100,000 to 60,000, taking that 40% pay cut, that is much more significant, right? Let's see. So,
what are your thoughts on all this, Thomas? I mean, I know the listeners don't normally care, but I'm genuinely curious.
I think it's great that the players are coming together. I think they need to encourage more participation. I think that some of these players who are lead figures in the sport should start acting like it more, right? And sticking up for their fellow players so that everybody has a beneficial outcome. To just sort of take your deal because you got the red carpet treatment and then just be silent because, well, who cares about them? I'm all set. I think is wrong. And I think the player collective should have everybody included, and it shouldn't just be an MLP thing. It should be a PPA thing and an APP thing, right? And I just think the players should truly come together. I think this is a good start. It's a step in the right direction. But I don't know. I would say, hey, it's certain players in the sport, if they were to say something, they could really make some noise and have a really positive impact. But many of them choose to be silent versus advocating for, their fellow players. And eventually these players are going to be, on the wrong side of just age, right? And, they won't be a top player still. And they're in that moment, they're going to wish that they had sort of stuck up and made sure everybody was getting a great outcome. And if there's conversations like this in the future, they're going to want their fellow players to stick up for them, even though maybe they're, 35, 40 now and not performing like they used to, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's look, it's tough when a really good deal is presented to you at the expense of others. That's a difficult thing to do. It's a difficult thing to turn down. I do think that we have a responsibility now to I think stand up for what's better for everybody. Um, and and also a responsibility to understand that, like, yes, what's better for everybody also includes what's better for these entities. Like, pay
Yep.
cuts
Yeah.
are reasonable, but let's come to a spot that's equitable, right? Let's come to a spot where, your person who's making $30,000 to begin with doesn't need to take a cut. Let's come to a spot where it's done equally, right? Or in a way that benefits everybody. And the way that this has been rolled out certainly doesn't do that.
Hmm.
Um, I think players who've created something or who have a voice, I think they should state their opinions. If enough people speak out against Big Pickle, there's strength in numbers, right? Right now,
Hmm.
I'm getting hammered because I'm the only one.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
come on, guys, join me. It's all right over here. It's okay. We're doing all right.
Um, okay, so 85% of the 2023 Premier level players agreed to reductions. Were you one of those 85%?
No, and that's patently false. We've independently verified that is absolutely incorrect
Okay.
at at the time that was being um, sent out.
Right. It could be the case now.
Um, I would bet my life savings that it's not.
Okay. All right. And so you have not agreed to the pay reduction at this point.
I'm not. Again, I'm willing to. It's not a matter of pay. It's doing what's correct. I the dollar amount is not the issue that I have right now. I would absolutely play pickleball with a 40% reduction here. Like, it is standing up for, I think, what's right in this situation, which
Hmm.
is making sure that this is done in an equitable manner.
Yeah. One interesting thing that I think everybody glossed over, and I kind of lacking clarity on what this actually means, but MLP also said, this is a quote, MLP also said they are at capacity. At capacity is in quotes, and not doing any more reductions. It added that if players who have accepted a reduction want to change back to their original deals, we would be open to that.
I don't even know what that means.
Yeah, what does capacity mean? What does that mean if they're at capacity? I don't quite understand. I
Does
think
that
it's
mean that they
interesting.
aren't allowing anybody to take the additional pay cuts? I
Maybe,
don't
but
know.
why would that? Why would that? Maybe because they need certain numbers of work days based on like the clinic and event schedule.
I think that was just a another high pressure negotiation tactic that failed.
Hmm. Um, all right, here's another line that I thought was super interesting. In
Oh,
MLP's Thursday
Thomas,
letter,
on that last note too, I know that they're still accepting pay cuts. Like, so yes, I know I don't believe that to be true.
well, I don't think they were saying that they aren't accepting any more pay cuts. They're just saying that if you took one and wanted to revert to the original deal, they would be open to that.
But yeah, I guess what does that mean? If you took one and want to revert to the original deal, okay, so you took your 40% pay cut for a 40% reduction in days, but if you want to revert back to 200 days, you can. I
Yeah,
can't imagine they're saying we'll give you back your full salary.
that's what they're indicating here. I don't know.
Okay, yeah, I think there would need to be some clarification on that for sure.
Yeah, I need a lot of clarification. In MLP's Thursday letter, the league also touts that MLP owners have pledged an additional $10 million annually to fund operations and will be receiving another $50 million on January 1st. Overall, after amended player agreements, there will be a 300% increase in total player salaries in 2024 versus 2023, it adds. So they're just, that last line is just trying to, fluff it, spin it in a more positive light. But interesting that they were able to get the owners to pledge an additional 10 million annually, and then they're receiving another 50 million. Maybe that's just in reference to that original capital infusion from Jason Stein and Al Tylis. I assume that's not another 50 million on top of that.
Yeah, that'd be that would be my assumption there.
But that indicates to me that they're extending their runway, which is a positive sign. But this really, so I took this quote and I sent it to my team today, and I was like, "Did you guys miss this? Because I missed this, and it's like the most interesting part of this whole piece."
Oh, is it the last sentence from that?
Yeah. If the merger is not completed by January 31st, 2024, right? So the end of January, these new agreements will be null and void, and deals will revert to the contracts you signed with MLP or PPA, which will leave the future viability and sustainability of MLP uncertain. What?
I mean, that's
why even like why talk about this arbitrary deadline, right? Like, and why would there be this deadline? I mean, to me, this would look like an internal date. Why would you publicize this?
And why would you say that your future sustainability is at risk, right? When sponsors look at that or see that, it's already been picked up in the CNBC article. When sponsors take a look at that, do you want to now sponsor MLP or PPA when Nike comes in and sees that, they're gone, right? And that's pretty bad leverage in any form of merger deal, right? You're talking about merging with somebody, and the PPA sees this email, obviously, are like, oh, well, if we don't close this deal by January 31st, their future is unknown. Oh, well, maybe we just let them fall apart and pick up the pieces later.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, that was a bizarre piece of this email that I think was simply intended to be, again, another negotiating tactic with players, another way of pressuring players. Like, we need to get this merger done. We need to get your pay cuts done so that we can merge. And if not, you might not have a contract.
Right. Well, you revert to the old contract. It's interesting to me because it's like, okay, so if the merger doesn't happen, you revert back to the previous scenario, which is shaky ground. The reason the merger happened is because the viability of the league in its previous circumstance was obviously very risky. And so the merger made the most sense. But even if the merger goes through, something that I thought was very interesting is that some Major League Pickleball events, PPA players won't be forced to play. That's a possibility.
That's even if the merger goes through?
Yeah. So, and I wanted to make sure, right? So I texted people from both MLP and PPA, leaders in those organizations. I asked them that, like, is this true? One said yes. One said no, that's not true. And one said, dude, anything is possible. So, again, I don't know, but it would be crazy for this merger to go through, and then, the top PPA players aren't playing Major League Pickleball.
Yeah, I mean, that would be brutal for Major League Pickleball. I definitely think somebody needs to get to the bottom of that. Somebody who's voting on whether or not this merger happens needs to know the answer to that question. And honestly, as a player, I would love to know the answer to that question too. But we haven't, one of the other elements of that survey is we really haven't had any answers to any questions. And yeah, it's just sort of uncertainty across the board. And, the number one thing that people can't make decisions off of is uncertainty. You can make decisions based on good news. You can make decisions based on bad news. You can't make decisions based on no news.
Okay, so you covered it on the last episode, this Major League Pickleball Dutch auction. So bringing back the Premier and Challenger and promotion and relegation for 2024. So that's now the case again. There will be a Premier level and a Challenger level. You can be promoted or relegated. Through the auction, they were able to raise an additional $4.8 million. So the $4.8 million, then they also have the MLP owners pledge an additional $10 million for 2024. So all of a sudden they have $15 million that they didn't have previously, which to me is that's a pretty positive signal, right? Along with the pay cuts and the staff reduction, it sounds like they've really extended their runway.
Yeah, I mean, like, the rumor is that Major League Pickleball could go bankrupt. I don't think that's a valid rumor whatsoever. Obviously, they have a lot of expenses that they need to cut, but also none of these team owners are going to see their multi-million-dollar investments go down to zero, meaning like they can do other things. They can have voluntary capital calls. They can sell more teams. They had this Dutch auction. I'd say that there's no way that these guys simply liquidate. I don't think that's a realistic thing. At least with the owners that I speak with, they don't want to simply walk away from this and let their investment go down to zero.
Right. Yeah, so in 2025 now, the top 4 Challenger teams will be moved into Premier, which means that in future years, there will be 16 Premier League teams and only 8 Challenger teams. So if you have confidence that you're going to draft well, why spend that, what ended up being $400,000 to be in Premier in 2024? Why not pay nothing, draft well, and compete to get back into Premier? And, because they're going to take 4 teams from Challenger. So I thought that was also pretty interesting.
Yeah, and I think it's, I think that just where the teams ended up too is interesting, right? Like, a couple of the champions, the Hard Eights and the Chicago Slice, decided not to put in, I guess, big enough bids to enter in. So I think they're maybe just confident that they can draft well enough in Challenger to get promoted. So, yeah, it's an interesting take. Then again, the Orlando Squeeze drafted well, and they said, hell yeah, let's get in Premier right away. Let's go. Let's keep the momentum going.
All right. Got to break it out. Did you see that we launched the Pickleball box?
I did. What's in it? Open it.
I don't want to kill too much time here because I know you got a hard stop. So I'm going to do that once you're out of here. But the Dink.shop, gear, apparel, accessories, delivered to your doorstep, over $250 of value in every box. You only have to pay $99 for it. Murray's ruining my ad. Just go to the Dink.shop. Check it out. I mean, honestly, if you just like pickleball, if you play a lot of pickleball, it's just very cool. Like, you're going to enjoy it. But then also, like, if you know anybody who plays pickleball, it's the perfect gift, debatably.
Is it the gift that you had for me? Do I get one of these or what?
Oh, my gift was a poem, dude.
This is worse than when I got socks for Christmas as a 6-year-old.
I put a lot of time into that poem. That's kind of messed up.
I know.
All right. Message received. Maybe we'll just scrap the poem.
I liked the poem, Thomas. I'm just kidding.
All right. And also, so we're going to be doing a giveaway to listeners of this episode. So comment, like, and be subscribed to the channel for a chance to win. Zane?
Murray was this is brutal. I've got nowhere to. Murray barks at every car that goes by. But I'm happy to contribute a Pro XR Zane signature paddle. Yeah, do whatever it is that Thomas said that you have to do, and you can win one of those. I can sign it. I cannot sign it. We'll just have to go back and forth on that. But enter the giveaway. It'll be fun. It'll be great. Thomas, you should give away a pickleball box. But what am I? Who am I to say?
We'll definitely be doing some giveaways with the pickleball box here soon. But yeah, so just make sure you comment on this episode, like it, subscribe to the channel. You'll get bonus points for the funniest comment. So
Ooh,
there you go. There's a little incentive.
I like that.
But all right. So in the midst of all this, right, I just want to touch on the fact that here is the APP slinking along in the shadows, continuing to expand while the PPA and MLP fight it out. So APP, we already know they're focusing on their international tournaments. So they've got England, Spain, Sweden, Australia, and there's another announcement coming soon in a big market that I think we already know there's traction. They have a high school pickleball tournament in Indiana for all the Midwest states, the collegiate championships, offering cash prize. They just announced this, okay? The APP US Collegiate Championships held on January 3rd and 4th will feature college teams and players from across the country competing for $50,000 in scholarship money and a spot in the national broadcast on CBS Sports Network. So that's pretty interesting. Okay, so we've got their international plays. They are catering to the younger demo with this collegiate championship. And they are doing a high school tournament. Wait, that's what I just said. Sorry. Okay. I confused the two. So there's a high school pickleball tournament in Indiana for all the Midwest high schools. And then there's the collegiate championship, which is January 3rd and 4th, $50,000 in scholarship money. And I assume like the finals would be broadcast on CBS Sports Network is what they're saying.
That's badass. You called it, dude. You said that they're going to be the cockroach, and I was like, man,
So
that's brutal.
Turns out they weren't happy about the cockroach comment, so we have to come up with a different way of saying that, which
What's the new
I understand.
Because I've actually grown on the cockroach thing has grown on me. I think it makes sense. Now maybe it's a little bit demeaning, but I think you did actually genuinely mean it as a compliment.
Yeah, I did. And I explained that. So Tom Webb, because we tweeted out something about them being a cockroach, and we meant it positively, but Tom Webb, their CMO, texted me. He was like, dude, seriously? And I was like, no, listen, it's like a good thing. But I'm not done with what the APP is doing, okay? So pro players competing in APP Tour majors in 2024 will be battling out for a minimum prize fund of $150,000 per event, while primary events will feature funds of at least $100,000 per event. So they've raised prize money across the board, okay? And as we know, they've introduced their team-based format. It'll be featured at 5 tour stops as a single-day competition of singles, doubles, and mixed doubles play, with pros vying for their share of a $100,000 prize pool. So remember when Major League Pickleball was like $100,000 for the winning team, and we were all like, "Whoa, that's crazy." That wasn't that long ago. And now the APP is doing the same thing. And one interesting note on that: the original MLP commissioner, Jenny Klitsch, is now at the APP. She's the one who invented the Dream Breaker. At least that's what people say. I'm sure maybe Steve would argue that, or some others. But now she's the senior vice president of pro relations and competition at the APP. That's Maddie Pickle's aunt.
Shout out.
So APP, never count them out. They're always going to hang around. They're moving some pieces on the board right now, and I don't know, they're doing some interesting stuff. It sounds like they've got some announcements on the way.
Yeah, I really like I like moving into the junior and the collegiate stuff. Like, yeah, I mean, I think that's tried and true in tennis, and there's a lot of jobs and a lot of demand for that type of stuff in tennis. And as this trends more towards a scholarship sport, which it inevitably will be, there's going to be all types of academies, all types of people looking to get their kid into some good coaching so that they can get a scholarship to a school. Like,
yeah,
this is all happening, and it's pretty cool that it's already being picked up by CBS.
Yeah. Duper's the other one who's really pushing along this college pickleball. It's honestly pretty crazy what's going on there. I think that is growing a lot faster than anybody really realizes.
Mm-hmm.
but I think college pickleball could be huge.
Yeah, I mean, you can have what other sport can you really have like a co-ed team? You know, there's track, there's I think it's track. I don't really know what else there is where there's co-ed teams.
Yeah, I don't.
I mean, I know there's
equestrian.
I have no idea. I've never. I'll have to ask my buddy Amin from the Orlando Squeeze, big equestrian guy at Fortnite. But that's different.
What do you think about any 2024 rule changes jump out to you? So USA Pickleball released their yearly rule changes. I will say that they aren't as drastic as some of the previous years.
Yeah, I mean, you know, hopefully they bring back the chainsaw. Let's leave that for the next episode. We can go through some of those. I would hate to just sort of breeze over those a little bit.
Okay, we'll save that for next week. What do you think about your?
All right, Tommy.
You have to go.
No. Let me end on this. We got
Okay.
a question from the Stop Alzheimer's Now
Okay.
jar, and we'll end on this on a high note. Who do you cast for if pro pickleballers were going to go on an island to do Survivor? Who do you cast? You have to pick 8 pro pickleball players. Maybe pick your top couple.
Here's what I would, if I'm picking in order of who I think would be good at it, right? Okay. So
No. Who do you cast? It's not who's good at it. It's who do you cast? You're the director.
Well, then I just pick all the hotheads. And anybody who's most likely, anybody who is known for paddle tossing, they're in. Okay. So Alshon.
Okay.
DJ.
Okay.
We're putting Jilly B in there. I mean, that's just that's an obvious one. We are gonna put in closet hotheads, people who are like quiet, but when you poke them the right way, they go off, right? Which is like a Stocksrud or a Pablo. Yeah.
Cole. I mean, you could have some great content if you put AJ and Federico on there.
Yep.
Put them on the same team.
Yep.
I think you got to have Salome in there.
Yep.
For some reason, I feel
she's willing to do what's necessary.
Let's see.
I'll put you in there because I think you're good at. You put the nice guy face on, but there's always something. Your wheels are always churning.
I mean, that's fair. How do you think you would do? I think that's a good cast. I feel like it's a little male heavy. You know, I think we need somebody who's maybe just like out of their depths, right? Like somebody who's not manipulative, somebody who's super nice. I feel like we have to toss in like an Edda or a Mary Brasha.
Yeah,
like
I was going to say Brashas.
Super nice.
Yeah.
And then just watch them turn and into a backstabbing winner in Survivor.
Yeah, I like it. Okay. All right. We can do this next week?
Yes, sir. We have to. We got more to cover.
Yeah, there's a lot more. But this ended up just being all about that CNBC piece, basically. So, more to come. All right.
More to come.
That's Pickle Pod. Thanks, Murray.
Murray says Pickle Pod. All right, later.
All right.
Yeah. I'm not gonna lie, darling, had gonna